and welcome everyone to the Coaching to Flourish podcast. I'm your host, Raj Anderson. I'm executive life coach and coach assessor, and I am super excited to be here live with Ashley Scott again. Hey, Ashley, how are you?
Hey, Raj, I'm doing so great. I'm so excited to be here.
It's exciting to have you here, and I know most people know who you are, but for those that don't, will you introduce who you are, kind of your background, what you do, that kind of thing?
Yeah. I am the associate provost with Coach Training EDU, which is just, I love my job so much. I have the incredible opportunity of community development, partnerships, really helping the team in any way that is needed. So I just have a really remarkable job that allows me to connect with people and care for people and celebrate Coach Training EDU and the people within the community. And so it's pretty remarkable. I've been with Coach Training EDU for 5 years now, a little over 5 years, which is amazing. And I'm so thankful to be here. I live in Kansas City, Missouri, and it's been one of my favorite places I've lived. So that's a little bit about me.
You do coach as well yourself, Ashley. You're a coach and you're passionate about kind of women in leadership. What would you share around that?
Yeah. I do coach. It's funny, there's just so much happening in life. I primarily work with women and the focus is on autoimmune wellness and self-worth. And so my heart just beats for women to know their value and their worth and to live life with their intentional design. And for women to just know how remarkable they are and be able to walk that out confidently. And so I do have clients. We work on that. I'm currently working on a group coaching program. And so I'm really excited for that. Just the community and relational and collaborative piece, I think that we need in our community of women and what group coaching could offer that to an individual and to that community piece, I think would be really neat.
Thank you for sharing that, Ashley. And
Thank
and
you.
I love any time I spend with Ashley, I always feel recharged and refreshed. And I know what an advocate you are for people. But you talked about women and this niche that you have around autoimmune and self worth. And I, before we came on, I was thinking about the theme for today and the topic. And I think all of this is connected as you talk about the people that you coach as well and self worth. And I ran a workshop a couple of weeks ago, which was around managing your energy.
Mm,
So I get a lot of clients that I work with are often stressed about a number of things. And they are particularly stressed around managing their time.
mm,
And I work with a lot of women too who can have a lot of pressure on themselves to think that they need to do it all, right? And they need to do it all and they've got to fit it in and it's jumping from one thing to the next. And as you and I both know, when you're exploring in coaching, often the presenting topic is time management.
mm,
Yet when we get to the root of it, it could be energy or it
mm.
could be self-worth. So what are your thoughts on themes around energy? Kind of what shows up for you when you're talking to people?
Yeah, that's wonderful. Um, well, I do think, culturally, we have this emphasis on productivity or completion of tasks or just movement constantly or filling our schedules as piece of our identity. It somehow fuels and adds to our self worth when we have one thing to the next to go to. And there's been seasons of life where that's been really fun to do that, and I've really enjoyed that. Just the connection piece that happens, and sometimes it can, for me, provide more energy. But then there hits a point for me personally when I'm operating in that way where I get burnt out And so a lot of the last couple of years is how to incorporate rest into every day. And so that looks like individually, but how to also bring rest into productivity and rest into the things and, the space in between one thing to the next and not overload in that way. And how that actually produces more energy over time to be able to do more, which is kind of, an interesting thing. That's what it makes me think of right off the bat is just the connection between our value and our worth and energy and productivity. What does that bring up for you, Raj?
Well, first, I just want to acknowledge that powerful statement that you made around actually rest increased its productivity.
Mm,
And I think we miss that sometime. Um, and one of the tools I did in the workshop was an energy review. So it was a weekly energy review of just looking at your day to day activities. So, what gives me energy and what is kind of taking my energy.
mm,
And then really thinking about, you know, where do I say no? Where am I saying yes too much?
mm,
And or when I was actually doing it, so this kind of speaks to your question, what does it mean to me? And I did the energy review and I was thinking about and I had some self-awareness. These are the things that charge me up. This is what might be draining me. But it also helped me to have a real awareness of where I wasn't resting as much as I should be. Um, um, where I was perhaps leaking some energy as well, or where might I not be setting the boundaries that I should be setting? And one thing that was really evident and has occurred to me, maybe this is a tip for coaches to reflect on as well, is that actually when I am coaching, and I mean when I am really coaching, I am not drained. I am actually charged and energized after a coaching session.
mm,
And if I am not energized or charged, and I've learned a lot from experience, so it doesn't happen as often, is when I am more in a consultant kind of role or I am over helping. So
mm,
my core motivation really at the center is helper. So I have this desire to help and I have a desire to make an impact. Yet when I am too invested in an outcome and when I am owning something too much, that is more draining for me. So I encourage you, coaches, if you're listening and you're coming out of a coaching session drained, observe yourself in terms of what are you carrying? Because when you're a coach, you detach from the outcome. You don't need to carry it. So you are no longer responsible for the weight of that.
mm,
And I think for me, that has been connected to energy all my life. I feel energy, I connect with people. It has been incredible for me to leverage because it's meant that I have been able to be surrounded by great people like yourself, Ashley. Yet at times it's also left me too open, which has meant I've been drained or I have given away too much of my energy.
mm.
What's jumping out to you there as I talk?
I'm curious. That's so good, Raj. When you're in that space of realizing you're giving too much, how do you check that meter? How do you check in with yourself, even presently? Because I know you're so self-aware in that way. And not always do we catch it right away, but in those moments that you realize, ooh, I'm exerting more energy than I need to. What is that dialogue for you or that shift for you? What helps you in that moment?
What a great coaching question. Thanks, Ashley. And, I like to journal as often as I possibly can.
Mm,
So, and I like to do a bit of a stock take. So, and this is where the tool helped me as well, the energy in, energy out. So I did a stock take, and I've done that before on mind, body, spirit, so what part of me is drained, right? Is it physically? Am I physically drained? So there's a check in. And if I'm physically drained, is it because I stayed up too late the night before? Right. I wanted to create Pinterest boards or whatever it was attempting to do, or binge watching something on Netflix, or
Mhm.
deciding to read something much later than I had anticipated. And there's learning in that for me as well. When I'm staying not much later than I probably should be, it's because I'm not getting enough time in the day for myself. Right.
Mm.
So even that is awareness right there. But I think to simplify it, for me, it is that connecting of, is this a physical energy drain or physical heaviness? Is it mental or is it emotional? Because then if I'm connecting with body, I'm like, okay, so I'm tired, or maybe I didn't nourish myself as well as I would have liked, or I didn't drink enough water, or really wasn't paying mind to what I was putting into my body. And I myself, and I'll talk about it some other time, have had a journey with some surgery last year and different kinds of medications, and connecting with my body more and more to see where am I feeling that and what's happening.
Yeah.
And then it's also connecting with that mental energy and the emotional energy. So emotional energy might be for me where I am getting impatient, right? Or I am being triggered by something, or I am misaligned with my values. And often that happens. Well, no, actually, more likely than not, I've figured out when I've journaled, it's happened because I'm not taking care of myself,
Mm.
or I'm not putting myself first. And then I'm getting angry or frustrated, or I'm not actually living in full purpose. Okay.
Mhm.
So I might be doing things that don't truly fulfill me. And we all have to do those. I run a business, right? I had to do my taxes, finish them last week. I would not say that was the biggest burst of energy for me. But you got to do what you got to do.
True. True. Thank you to the people that is energy giving. We
Yeah.
love
Thank
you.
you.
We're grateful for you.
Thank you to my CPA, who never seems to be drained when I speak to him. And he's like, we got this.
So true.
What about you? How are you aware about your own energy?
Yeah, I really love what you just shared. And I think the holistic approach to it is incredibly important because sometimes we can automatically go to, okay, this is a mental, like this is something emotionally or mentally that's happening for me. But really it's physical. And it's just that we have not been taking care of our bodies. Like sleep and food and movement are incredibly important. And the basics are sometimes what we need in order to be able to do everything else. They're so foundational. And but often we can negate that because one, maybe we operated in one way in the physical when we were younger that we no longer can and it doesn't serve us anymore. So there's an evaluation in different seasons and different life stages that we go through as well. I also really, when you were talking, what it reminded me about a lot is we even have to have boundaries around what rest looks like too. So I think a lot of times we can think, well, I rested all last week, but I watched 20 hours of TV. That's not actually restful or energizing. Typically, for anybody I've met would not say if they really took like really looked at their meter last week and if they spent 20 hours watching TV that they felt rested. Maybe the first couple hours, like that was really needed to just unwind, not think about anything. But I think sometimes what we can do when we've hit the point of exhaustion or we don't have energy, we just keep going with that thing. And then it actually ends up draining us more. And so looking, and that could be too if, for me, alone time can be incredibly energizing. And at first it can be beneficial, but if I'm doing it on weeks at end and I'm not saying yes, I'm saying no to the things I should be saying yes to as well. I will feel that in a few weeks where I'm like, oh, I'm kind of like lonely and I actually haven't really laughed with somebody in a while or, and then it's like, okay, so initially, yes, I was doing the right thing for what I needed emotionally and spiritually. But then I stuck in that too long or didn't balance it out well that the pendulum went, one to the other instead of finding that healthy middle space. So that, I loved everything that you said and I'm so there with you. And it brought up that for me too, just the intentionality with rest as well. And yeah, it's so important. And it just fuels everything else. And rest can look like various things. It doesn't have to be something specifically like journaling is remarkable. And I would encourage everybody to journal. One, just to get things out because I can't remember. There's some science behind what that does for us that I had read about. But it's also an incredibly impactful for us to be able to go back and read a process that we've gone through, or an aha, or even to see our growth and be like, "What? Like, I'm so proud of myself." And there's so much to that, and so I'd encourage that. But you don't have to journal 10 hours a day. You could take 5 minutes to journal, or, I've heard of the journaling 3 pages a day. Just journal, just write your heart out for 3 pages. Usually that only takes a few minutes, and so just the figuring out what gives you energy and gives you life. And that might look different for you than it does for somebody else as well. Or it might be a little taste of this little bite and then another little bite over here, or, it reminds me of like tapas. Yes. The golden tapas in your life every day. A small little plate of it all.
That's such a great metaphor, Ashley. A bit of tapas, little bits and pieces, isn't it? And you use the word when it become unhealthy. And as I was listening to you as well, what I've learned to observe in myself is the things that I need to eliminate, as you said, even with what I'm watching and the times that I'm watching them. But I am fascinated by human behavior and psychology, right? So I do like to watch like murder documentaries and those kinds of things. Yet, it's not great to be watching them at certain times of the day, right? Bedtime, for example, or where is this too much? And I was actually watching something. We were watching a series, my husband and I said to him, right, I've had enough of this for today. And he's like, oh, why? What's wrong? And I said, I can feel that this is putting me in a bad mood because I was so invested in the outcome and the energy of the people that were actually in the show. So
Mhm.
I love what you said around kind of this tapas approach, observing yourself. When might it be unhealthy? And you also talked about checking in with yourself. Oh, and it's been such a long time since I had a laugh with anyone. Or when was the last time I kind of played?
Mhm.
And what does play mean to you, Ashley?
Yeah. Play is actually really important to me. Um, I've been through seasons in my life that have been incredibly difficult. And I think that some of what's helped me get through that is some play. So experiencing joy and whatever it was that I was going through. Um, but man, laughter is just so good for the soul. And I recognize when I am not playing, when I don't have some sort of creative outlet or some way to play in my life, um, my creativity is not as it's not there as much. I find I'm going to be more apathetic in the day or a little bit more sluggish, and so it's just and it's sometimes it's small little things like play can look so different. So part of it could be making silly videos with my best friends to I just went on a walk for my lunch and there's a butterfly bush and there's just tons of butterflies on it. And so I just stood there and watched the butterflies and I just laughed and I was taking a video and one kind of came up right in front of my camera and you could hear me laugh on the camera. And it was just like taking a moment to just enjoy and just allow myself to laugh at, yeah, just the, I don't know, the connection of with nature and that is a form of play, I think, for me. Um, so there's we talked about this before. Brene Brown, and this kind of connects with what we were talking about before. She said, if we want to live a wholehearted life, we have to become intentional about cultivating rest and play, and we must work to let go of exhaustion as status symbol and productivity as self-worth. So good. What is it? I'm kind of all over the place with this because there's so much with play, and I'm like, I don't really have so much time. But what are your thoughts around that, and what kind of comes up for you with play?
So the one thing there, Ashley, when Brené Brown talks about it as a status symbol, and
Mm,
I've talked about this before, we wear it as a badge of honor, don't we? And I used to be that person in the corporate environment as well. Used to say with pride, oh, I just remember saying, oh, I hadn't had a day off sick in 7 years. Oh, I don't take a lunch break, right? Um, oh, it's fine. I'll work through my vacation as though it meant that I was better than, in a sense. It was my
mm,
ego as well that, oh, if I work myself to almost death, right, I'm attempting to prove something to the world.
mm,
And the listeners, if you're listening to this, I'm curious how many of you have badges of honor. What does that badge of honor look like for you in terms of that? And
mm,
also, I mean, I play more now than I probably did in my 20s and 30s because as adults, it's almost as though we think that we can't play, isn't it?
mm,
Right. And everything's so serious and the corporate world's so serious and life is so serious and then we can't laugh at ourselves or it's play isn't for adults. And I was joking with somebody the other day and I said I've moved around a lot and I live in the US and I've lived in different places and I am lucky to stay connected with a lot of people online, but I am always in situations where I'm meeting new people and I was like, how do you say as an adult to someone, will you be my friend? Right? Because as kids, you just go up to somebody in the playground and there's no stigma to that.
mhm,
Yet as adults, there seems to be a stigma around kind of fun and play. And I do think the world has evolved and changed. And for me, anyone who knows me at all is going to know that I'm going to say I'm a huge Disney fan, right? And there are different components of Disney that I'm a fan of. One, it's the leadership principles of Walt Disney himself. But the fact that he created somewhere which wasn't just for kids, but for adults to go and play. And for me, it is that disconnection. It's being able to be a big kid, judgment free,
mhm,
judgment free in terms of just, as you said, having fun, being able to laugh, being able to laugh at myself, right? I know when
mhm.
I laugh at myself, energy shifts, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you should see me two-stepping. It's hilarious, but I do it anyway because there's moments of feeling free and laughter and just playing. I love that so much, Roz. What it makes me think of for everybody is like, how can you play this week? And it doesn't have to be going to the park or dancing like Raj and I are talking about. Those are wonderful things to do. But it can be as simple as getting a paintbrush and a piece of paper this week and just allowing yourself to be creative. Or there's a group of us that went and did a pottery wheel class and we got to create our I mean, the things that we came up with, they were fire instant back to us. I don't even know what we're gonna use them for, right? Like, they're not they're not real pottery. It's not, I mean, yes, it is. Sorry, anybody that I love dearly that way with me created these, but they like trunk and fire. Anyway, we had so much fun doing something different. None of us, I think only one person out of the 8 of us knew how to actually do it. And it was just, we just played together and we laughed together. And so it's like, how can you play this week and who can you invite into that play? Like your question of like, will you be my friend? Like, yes, like let's break as adults. It's so important. Community is so important. Play individually for creativity and just health is vital, but playing with others is so important. It's so important. And if I think a lot of us too, if we just broke that wall and we're like, hey, you want to come play with me? Another adult's probably be like, yeah, I've wanted to for a long time.
Yeah.
Ask. And if they don't, then they're not the person to do that with and just go ask somebody else. There will be somebody else who will want to do that. So I love that you brought up that point. That's so good.
Yeah. So there's that question, and I'm going to think about how else am I going to play? And I like the idea of coloring or creating something or painting something. Yeah, I actually had a great time. I did a paint and sip class. You don't have to drink wine, but I did that last year. And was it the best piece of art? Is it going to go up in a museum? Probably not. But it was so much fun.
It's so much fun.
Just laughter is a release, isn't it? It's the same as having a workout or like going to the gym, what it releases in your body. And I know we're on time. And final thing I might share is if you haven't checked out laughter yoga, check that out online as well. And my sister and I did it once. And it was absolutely hilarious. And I was very uncomfortable at first, yet I did it myself in the safety of my own space. But that laughter lifted so much weight off of me. So,
I have never heard of that. I'm going to have to check out laughter yoga.
yes, check out laughter yoga. We're on time. Thank you so much, Ashley. It's been a pleasure and so much fun and laughter with you. And you've lifted my spirits today. So thank you.
Same, Raj. Thank you so much. I always love hanging out with you. And thank you, everyone, so much. Excited. If you go and play this week or the next, like let us know and share what you've been up to. Comment on this video on Facebook or send us a note and encourage the community to play. Show people what you're up to. It's contagious when we start to see somebody else having fun and experiencing joy. It really ripple effects into other people's lives. So I encourage you to share it as well.
Yeah, give us some ideas. All right, we'll see you next week. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye.